17, so 18. All right. 3, 2, 1. What up, what up? We're back.
All right.
Boxlunch, episode 18. Live from Orange County. What's up, dude?
We're here.
We made it. It's been about a month or so. It's been
Has it really?
Yeah, it said here a month ago.
Okay.
Episode. That's probably the last time you were here, too.
Maybe.
It's been a little while.
It has been a little while. Well,
We did some, what have we done the last month or so?
You went to Cabo.
I did go to Cabo. I guess that's a good place to start this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went on vacation last week.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. What started out as a relaxing, stress-free
Time by the beach.
by the beach, drink in your hand, turned into a crazy thing when there's nothing like coming back to the resort and them telling you a Category 2 hurricane is headed your way. If you're gonna, basically the letter said, if you're gonna be here tomorrow, this was last Thursday, if you're gonna be here Friday, the storm's gonna hit and you're gonna get changed from guest, your status is gonna go from guest to refugee. And that's the exact language they used. And they said, if this happens, you'll have access to your passport. And I think they said like just hygiene stuff. No chargers, no suitcases, nothing.
Why not chargers, though?
I think there's probably
Just
limited.
too many.
There's too many people, and the resort has like 800 rooms or something.
Oh.
And they were at, I think they said 80% occupied.
Okay.
So
Okay. That'd
lot
be
of
a lot
people-
of cell phone chargers.
yeah, and imagine everybody fighting for an outlet. Anyways,
Dang.
so yeah, it was crazy. So then our flight got canceled like immediately, and then there was no flights out the next day. Maybe Saturday, probably Sunday. So we decided, man, we need to get out of here. So we did. We packed our bags without flights, and we just asked a bunch of people to pray for us. we're gonna try to get out of here. And the risk we were taking was if we check out and there's no flights,
You can't check back in, right? Or
it would have been difficult to do that. Because at that point we don't have a reservation technically,
yeah.
and I don't know what the.
Could you just did you have to check out? Yeah, you had to pay up, right? Like you had to.
Oh, I had to pay up front. It's a lot different over there in Mexico. You don't pay at the end; you pay when you come in, and it's all inclusive. So it's
It's
you
a
don't
flat.
room charge anything. It's a flat thing. So yeah, we had a rental car. We decided to go, and then the people that were working there were like, "Hey, some people just went to the airport and came back because there was no flights." So we're like, "Dang it! Like that's scary, you know?"
Yeah.
Everybody's panicking a little bit. We decided to just go. And yeah, it was like one thing after the other, man. We went to the rental car place to drop off the car a day early. And they weren't expecting us. And then by the time we got there, they were closed. They were the ones that were supposed to give us a ride to the airport. So now we don't have a ride to the airport.
Because car rental's not at the airport.
No, it's off the airport.
Yeah.
But it's close enough where you could see the airport.
Right.
But you just can't just walk there.
You can't walk it. Nah.
No. So then the guy that owns the rental place, this was like a local place, not like Hertz or anything like that.
Okay, yeah.
They were like, he's like, yeah, man, I would have had my guys wait for you, but they left, like they're gone.
They're out.
He says, why don't you drive by the airport, flag a taxi to come follow you? I mean, like ghetto, like just.
Yeah.
So we did. We drove around, couldn't find a single taxi because no one's at the airport.
Right. So why would there be taxis waiting?
Right.
No planes coming.
And the airport's like a ghost town, and it's scary, and it's already getting dark.
Dude.
So then we end up going back, And then the guy at the gas station said, try Uber. I didn't even know Uber worked in Mexico. And it didn't work because it said Uber doesn't operate at the airport.
So
Because the gas station was considered airport. So then we drove back to the rental place and I tried it again because we were far enough and it worked. And only 2 guys showed up, like on the little,
Wow.
on the app. 2 drivers show up. So you just send it for request for pickup. And then it said your drivers will be here in 5 minutes, whatever. And it's already dark at that point. And we have all our bags, like suitcases in the middle of nowhere, desert,
Dude.
dark, shady, and waiting for an Uber driver. And he never shows.
No.
So I called him twice and he couldn't find the place. I go, can you map it? Like put it in the GPS.
Yeah.
That's how I got there. And, in Spanish is like, yeah, I'm mapping it, but it's taking me somewhere else. So I had to cancel it after a half hour and then hope that the other guy was still around. And then the other guy picked up the ride. Wow. And then he showed up within 5 minutes. Then we got dropped off. And then
You're at the airport now.
At the airport.
No car.
So now we're there.
Dude.
And everything's closed in that terminal. Like there's nothing. And it's like 7:30 or something like that. So we ended up finding a flight that I had to call because there's nobody at the ticket counters.
No.
0. Nobody is at the ticket counters. So I had to call the airline through the phone and they found us 4 seats, I don't even know how, on a flight to TJ that night, like 11:30 p.m. or something. So we booked them on the phone, and then we had to wait till like 9:30. So we were just sitting there till they finally showed up to the ticket counter because there was no flights till that last flight.
That was it.
Yeah. So there's no reason for anyone to be over there on the counter.
So
That was the last flight, and we probably got the last seats on that flight.
Was it just passing through, or was it
No,
a
it was
new plane coming in? Like, were there other people on the plane?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Were they from Cabo, or were they from
I think somewhere it was connecting.
a connecting flight?
Yeah, I think so.
So from like Mexico City or something.
Yeah, something like that. Crazy though. So yeah, we
Dude.
ended up on a late flight to TJ, and then we got picked up at the border. But at that point, you're like so close
Yeah.
that it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So we got picked up at the border. Luckily, the airport's on the border. You pay a fee to cross, like $15.
Mm-hmm.
You pay. You go through this walkway that's special access, and then you end up at customs, and then you're out. You're through. Walked out of the doors, and there was our ride waiting for us. And then it was like an hour and 45 home.
Really?
Because it was like 1:30 in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So no one out.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
GPS at 1:45. I'm like, this is the best hour and 45 minute drive of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just gunned it home, and we were in our own beds that night, which is a complete miracle. So sorry for the long story, but that just happened, and it was crazy.
Dude, this is nuts.
But we made it back, and I don't think I'm going to go to Cabo for a while.
Yeah, check the hurricane season.
Yeah, I didn't do that last time. But we're back, and what were you up to during the week? There was a lot of pitching. Right?
Yeah. Doing some events, practicing Bubble.
Tell us about Bubble.
All right, so I'll tell you a little
the
about
audience
Bubble.
here about Bubble.
So I went to a event a few weeks ago, and the focus was sort of basically walking us through a platform called Bubble, bubble.io. And what bubble.io does, or the Bubble app does, is it allows you to create progressive web apps. And progressive web apps basically is it's a web app. Honestly, I don't know what the progressive part of it really means per se, but what they've basically done is made a platform to build progressive web apps without needing code. So it's sort of, there's this whole world of like no code. And it doesn't mean that you can't use code. You can still go in there and sort of interject your own code within it. But the basic idea is that you can build an app using just sort of a tool set, a toolbox of stuff. And sort of what I was explaining it to you earlier about it was sort of like, if you think of sort of the revolution that CMS has had on the web, right? So, prior to WordPress and stuff like that, all sites were sort of hand coded, and it was a pain in the butt. It was all sort of manual entry. And then CMS sort of like WordPress came along and said, you know what, 80-90% of this stuff.
There was a lot of CMSs out there that sucked.
Prior to that.
For years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the evolution took a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's so streamlined that it's the only way.
Yeah, like
right? It's kind of the only way to do things.
Yeah, like doing sites by hand, just I don't think it scales even. Like it's sort of like, why would you do it that way? And so anyway, so this sort of thing, the same thing sort of happening in the world of apps is these developers are basically realizing that 80 to 90% of most apps sort of use the same functionality. If you think of the way social sites work and all this stuff, it's a pretty similar architecture, And so they've basically built it so it's optimized to basically create those kind of apps. So if you're creating a social network or something like that, you could create it on Bubble without actually having to code. So that's the idea. And so one of the best cases or use cases for Bubble is actually in the development of prototypes and MVPs. So that's sort of what we're trying to do is kind of get up to speed on it. Like I said, there's other platforms, so Bubble's just one of sort of a handful. But just like WordPress, it has a community behind it. There's a bunch of developers actually creating custom plugins for it, and it really, what's sort of powerful too is it opens itself up to all these APIs that exist. So you're able to really build on top of functionality that's already out there. So for instance, we're working with a startup that wants to use like video chat and one-way chat.
Do you mean the Twitch of sports?
The Twitch, or can you see? I see that. There you go, the Twitch of sports. So I'll just say it, for a GenCast, we're working on an MVP that uses Facebook video, the Facebook Live API.
Yeah.
And so what this platform lets you do is basically leverage it. It creates a box that you can throw in that Facebook API into. And you're basically building a fully functional version of what it is without having to do native code. So anyway, it's exciting stuff, and it's going to allow us to build these prototypes rather quickly. Yeah. Ideally, and cheaply.
Yeah, because part of the issue we've come across is we've been pretty good these last few months working on these startups to sort of guide them kind of in a new direction. But not all of them have that sort of technical expertise to actually build anything.
That's right.
Right? And we've always found ourselves in a position where we can get up to a certain point, right? Even with UI, UX, even the whole experience, but it's like, okay, well, what do we need to build now? What's our MVP going to look like?
That's right.
And then it's always like, what's that going to cost? And then there's always a barrier, which is, well, now we got to go raise some money so that we can build this MVP.
Right.
And now these no-code platforms, Bubble in particular, now maybe opens up an opportunity for us to be able to do it for way cheaper, right? So say, well, we're going to MVP this thing in a progressive web app using this platform, and we'll be able to test this in no time.
Yeah.
Then we'll know, right? And we can sort of go from there.
Right.
And then you have this MVP, sort of help you with your pitch,
That's right.
instead of screenshots or,
Right.
A demo or something.
And probably the ideal scenario is that in the time it takes us currently now to build sort of a mock-up of the app,
Yeah.
you could build a functioning version that does some basic stuff. And there's a handful of different, I think, benefits. One is when you build a progressive web app, it's immediately cross-platform. And so you're not dealing with iOS, Android, Mac OS, Windows. It runs on all of them because it's running through a browser. And then second, it also allows for developers to sort of continue on. So one of the problems that when you're building MVPs and stuff is you're typically working with, the expensive way is to go through an agency, like a development firm, right? And they're going to throw, a handful of designers on it or developers on it. It's very pricey, right? I mean, an MVP for going through an agency would probably cost you $20,000 or so. I want to say that's sort of the pricing we were looking at for some, and that was, that's like calling in favors. The other cheaper way is to hire a freelance developer. We've been through that.
Jeez.
Problem with that again is that code is sort of not really that transferable. So what one developer starts, another one has a hard time picking up. It's just sort of the nature of that beast. And so you end up sort of in this weird place where you're like, well, you'd end up having to scrap it for the next version, or if that developer gets busier on another project, you end up having to start all over. What I think this platform allows for is a bit more consistency, so you can have multiple people involved, because it is sort of the WYSIWYG of this sort of thing. Just like WordPress. Yeah. Like you can sort of, it's much easier to hand over a WordPress site to somebody else to not only maintain, but to update, than it is like, hey, here's a bucket of code. So it has some definite advantages in that regard. So not to mention the speed and affordability of it. So anyway, so it's probably the future, just throwing it out there. And as these things get more and more advanced, I think that you're going to see that world get really close. I mean, think of it this way. I mean, Google's been using progressive web apps. I mean, Gmail is a web app. Google Docs, Google Drive, all the Google web apps, Slides, Sheets, all those things are all web apps. Yep. And they run great. Yep. To the point where Google said, you know what, screw it, we're just going to make a laptop that runs just Chrome and web apps. And it's been interesting too, because there's actually, I think,
it wouldn't even like Spotify on,
Yeah, so Spotify has a web app.
Right? So it's not that uncommon. It's just, especially early stage, there's just no need to go all in on native right away.
No, there really isn't. And I think what you're going to see too is there's going to be sort of a push where the problem is this. Who's going to screw it all up is actually Apple. And the reason is the reason Apple is not very open to web apps as a platform because they won't put them on their store. And the part of the reason is it's too easy to go around their whole monetization thing, right? So if Apple takes 40% of most sales that go through the app, so if it was a progressive web app, that you wouldn't be beholden to Apple's sort of fingers in your code base, so they wouldn't be able to track those transactions, right? It wouldn't go through the OS; it would be going through a browser, and so they wouldn't track it. That's just my guess. My guess is why they're sort of resistant to it. But I have heard that there's this sort of debate even happening at Google between web apps and Android, because they're sort of looking at it and saying, you know what, the problem with Android is that you're having to. There's the proliferation of devices. There's so many devices out now. And supporting, what you're having is just in any situation, you're having legacy issues. So there's people out there with Androids that are 5-6 years old that are still using them, right? And so Android app or Google started sitting there like, how long do we support Android 5 and Android 6, and you know what I mean? How long do we continue to patch those security issues? Because if you just sort of leave it, you're talking about a whole, potentially hundreds of millions of phones that are now vulnerable, right? So I think there's this push within Android and Google to sort of say, you know what, let's find a sort of a medium ground where they can kind of both exist. Because it is sort of weird. If you get a Chromebook, you can't run Android apps. Or they're sort of making it so it can.
Right.
So you can tell there's sort of this, they're trying to find this middle ground for those sort of things to work. Anyway, it's interesting stuff. It's kind of geeky, but working in this startup space is definitely kind of putting us in that situation where we want to be able to not only help these companies find those new opportunities, but then test it and see whether or not it's worth a full investment. So it's
and
fun.
we're sort of trying to find our way, if we're being transparent, like we always are on these things. At what stage? I mean, we have, I think, in our mind, we know what stage startups we want to be working on, working with. And then we have sort of earlier stage keep kind of finding us a bit. And then today we've been talking about, is there any opportunity in idea stage?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think it's worth looking into. I mean, there might be stuff out there, resources and things for idea stage startups, but how do we sort of move them into early stage? If we do go in sort of from the idea stage, is there a business there?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of a cool discussion about really going after people who they have an idea. That's about all they got. They don't know where to start. And so the question is, like, how do we kind of walk them through that process, but also be very practical and say, we're going to take you through these 5 things. And at the end, you're going to have this thing that, basically work to the point where you have a friends and family pitch deck. The goal, of course, then at that point, just raising a small round friends and family. Be like, guys, I got this idea. This is what I'm looking for. And then at that point, you raise a little money. Now you're a early stage startup. You've sort of graduated to that next level. And then from there, we have a whole other package for early stage startups. And then for later stage startups, we have another package. So sort of that working up that ecosystem, the small, medium, large sort of approach to things. I love it, though. I think it's a great idea.
Grande, or what is it? Tall, grande?
Tall, grande, venti.
Venti.
That's it. But yeah, it's fun. And it's definitely in this mix. And for those people who sort of, know that world of advertising and stuff like that, it's very different. We've kind of come a long way from where we started and just doing sort of marketing and advertising and websites and stuff like that, to really getting into this point where we're consulting with these startups, finding new opportunities. And
I definitely love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think it is new for us, so we're probably making some pretty dumb mistakes. But that being said, we're quick learners. We know, and we're sort of putting ourselves out there without really that big of a plan. Let me put it this way too. Like, we were talking, I'm sure on this podcast or other things we talked about, this idea of the 2020 and all this kind of stuff. But as we've been going through it, it does sort of, it has changed a little bit as we were talking. Like even sort of what we first went in with, what we thought people were going to gravitate towards. In some ways, it's evolving from that. Not to say that the thinking isn't there. It's just that how it's presented, what our objectives are, makes it's sort of more in line with more of a pragmatic approach to this stuff versus sort of an academic. And I think that's something that we would have, we won't find out until we really test it, until we get out there and start pitching, and then we realize, oh, this is actually what you need. Or what sort of happened early on is one of our first startups we worked with just straight up said, here's what we need, X, Y, Z. And we're like, oh, well, that makes sense. And then sort of from that point on, that's been part of our goal is to basically just go and say, you probably want to go with, from this idea, you're going to want to do X, Y, and Z with it, right? And they're like, yeah, I said, that's exactly it. So it's sort of learning from what we get exposed to and then adapting it and making it our own. So, but yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I love it, but it is different. And we're also trying to sort of establish what the, how our business model works around that. So we're not.
That's been pretty challenging.
Yeah, that's sort of the scariest part about it.
Yeah.
I feel like our product, we know what we're doing, like it's quality stuff that we're producing. It's a matter of finding the business model that allows us to sort of keep doing it and stay profitable with it. But we love it. So if you've got a startup and you're looking for ideas, early stage, idea stage, later stage, we are happy to entertain those.
Yeah.
And so
little plug for LinkedIn. So if you scrolled to here on LinkedIn, that this is for you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're sitting in a cube right now and you're just hating your job and you just can't stop thinking about that one idea.
Dude, but that's the truth is what I love about that approach too, is that was me, man. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'd stay late at an agency, and be like, oh, I'm going to start this thing. And, I get about as far as a logo or something. That'd be my thing, like, oh, I got a logo for this idea. And then I'm out, then I'm done. Like, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
Zero.
And most people don't.
Right?
And you know what's crazy thing is in some cases, some people, and if they've got some money, this is probably, in most cases, what they do is they'll just go right and build.
Yes. Dude.
With no plan, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Just, I need to build it.
Yeah.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worst strategy ever.
Worst
strategy ever.
Yeah. And then you realize like people put themselves into a financial hardship because, they either built a software platform that didn't take off or they built an app, by themselves, put in whatever money they could because they thought it was going to take off. And no, it's dicey out there.
Big time. And we said this story before about the whole, and I think on our vlog too, I went in depth about this, but it's this idea of also like, I guess in a way, looking the part, knowing what you're selling, knowing what it is, looking the part, making it presentable.
Yep.
That's gotten us into meetings that we had no business in. Mm-hmm. Often.
Oh yeah.
Where we had nothing technically built, right? But we knew what we were selling, and even if it was the wrong thing, because we've pivoted a little bit, but we knew exactly what it was, and then we were like, this is it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's definitely value in that. So we want to help folks figure that stuff out first, right? Get it nailed down and then take baby steps to whatever it is they're going to launch.
Yeah.
It's just more effective that way.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the day where it's a year from now or two, whatever, where we can actually show the examples of these startups.
Yeah.
Succeeding, the ones that took our advice and, sort of took it to that next level.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them will get mass adoption, you just never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'll be cool to see.
Absolutely.
Because right now we're so early with a lot of these, it's just only time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard too, because we can't really talk about them because there's,
exactly.
like you're sort of, a lot of these startups, they've got to work sort of in stealth mode, because either there's a competitor out there that, is probably, well, in some of these cases, yeah, we know. Like, this is what's crazy. So we'll be working on one of these things, and then we'll be tracking their competition or their potential competition. Let me put it that way. And then we'll find out not that long into it that there, in fact, is something like this on their roadmap. And so that sort of does two things. It validates what we're thinking and obviously the road we're on, but then it also scares us because we're like, okay, first to market, there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Let's say the example without saying exactly what it is. But we took on an early stage startup. They want to go to market with this product, right? Yep. This is what we want to do, and we come in, right, and we kind of Robert Irvine the thing a little bit, and we say, do this instead. Let's kind of get it. We got a sledgehammer and a little bit and reworked it, right? And said, here it is. You're going to do this instead. There's a huge opportunity right here. Right. And within a week, I don't know, week or two?
2 weeks, maybe.
2 weeks. We're listening to Weekend Startups or one of these.
Yep.
Right? JCal. And he's got the founder of a pretty big startup that's starting to get some major traction, right? They had just got a big series, was it C?
At least, yeah.
Right? They got a really big round. And the CEO is just like, I mean, he's laying it all out there.
Dude.
He's put just it all spilling the beans, man. It turns out he's talking about potentially a feature in their platform that is exactly what we pitched our startup. Yep. I mean, pretty much the same thing.
Pretty much the same thing. And they're already. I mean, the reason we were kind of perking up is they're like, well, this is sort of in that we used this company in our pitch deck.
We did
as rationale as to why they should do it, because we're like, there's obviously momentum in that in this space. Come to find out that company is actually working on a competitive product to what we pitched. So yes, so needless to say,
validation,
right? But and here's the beautiful thing, and I sort of
and they already did basically that part of the work.
Yeah, they did the market research for us, right? They've already done it.
Right.
They've obviously given it. I mean, they've obviously invested some thought and energy and money into it.
Yeah.
It's on their roadmap. Where on that roadmap, I don't know. At first, I thought it was like going to be a month away, but I think it's further away. But even JCal was like, that actually sounds like a bigger opportunity. Yeah. Like straight up to the guy's face says that idea right there could be bigger than what you have now. And the guy sort of dismissed it for a couple of reasons. But to hear him say that and to be, so we got on the phone with the founders that night.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you guys got to listen to this.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, what are we going to do? So definitely lit a fire. I want to bring up another sort of validation point. So tap that app. Okay. So here's a little story. Way back when Charlie and I had just gotten into the Precelerator program. And one of the nights there was a thing called Founder Meets Funder, or I think that's what it was, over in Santa Monica. And I went there, and you basically, it's like speed dating. You get like 2 minutes to talk to an investor. I say investor with air quotes because I don't know if any. Let me put it this way: most of the people there were employees. They were basically like sending around talent agents, or scouts. These people weren't.
Yeah, more like scouts.
Scouts, like give me your resume and then I'll take it back and,
Right.
So they weren't really like, they weren't great at asking the right question. They just didn't know what they were really doing. They just, whatever. Except this one woman. And when we started talking, she made it clear. She's like, I've made 3 exits. And now I'm an angel investor. And I was like, okay, so you are not like the rest of the people I've been talking to who are just, these hired guns. And immediately the conversation was very different when I presented TAP. Because she went straight into questioning it. What about this? What about that? Well, luckily, for whatever reason, it was the last round. Like, this is the last person I'm talking to, and the speed dating ends, right? They hit the bong. Everyone's kind of walking up and around. She's like, I'm like, looking around. She's like, you don't have to leave. Let's keep talking. So should we keep talking? And her thing is like, why would anyone use this? Like, coming at me some like real like basic questions that make you just go, dang it, do I even know what I'm doing here? Like, just have you thought this through? But just sort of like the kind of questions that founders would throw at people, be like, let me get to your bones right now. I'm just going to push right on through to your skeleton. Like, I'm going to ask you basic questions that you should know the answers to. And it was one of those situations, and I've had a couple of these in my life, where like people do that not because they're trying to tear you down. They're finding where you push back. Like, where is it? Where do you got to come at me? Like, you got to get firm. And so she asked these questions just sort of to make me better. I could tell like it was sort of that tough love, right? And it didn't go well. Like, she's sort of like, okay, well, I think she almost like, you've got some issues, like you need to solve those. And I was like, dang it, and I kind of went away. I don't even know if I stuck around much longer, because I was just like, man, that ripped me apart, And it was that night, I remember sort of just sitting at the kitchen table, and I was like, dang it, like, what are we going to do? Da, 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 da. And this sort of idea popped in. I was like, you know what? Because she had sort of gone through some scenarios of like what she would need and all this stuff. And this idea of a subscription came into my mind, like, because I don't know how she had said it, but this idea, and then I think I probably texted you right away. I was like, dude, we got to talk about this. And we basically said, what if we create a Netflix or a Spotify for apps, right? It was shortly thereafter. So, and we called it Tapify. Remember that?
Yeah.
So
we have that pitch deck as well.
Yes. So anyway, so off of that conversation, we came up with this idea called Tapify, and the idea was a Spotify subscription. You pay a monthly fee, say $5-10, and now all of a sudden you have a whole library of apps that you can use that would otherwise have cost you money. And anyway, so we're like, this is crazy. This could work. We look around. Amazon had a thing called the Amazon Underground.
That's right.
That was similar, but it had this weird monetization model where people are paid, or app developers are paid for their time, and it was just this weird sort of, and Amazon ended up ditching it. And so we're like, whoa, there's still probably a thing here. We ended up talking. I spent an afternoon with a VC brainstorming stuff around this, and same thing.
On the gaming, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so they're sort of like, wow, he was a huge gamer. He's like, this could be a huge opportunity for gaming, because he's like, and he even admitted, he's like, I probably spend $100 a month or more on mobile game stuff.
Wow.
And then come to find out, people are spending thousands of dollars. Like, people who have just dumb money are just spending money. And these apps actually let you, like, there's actually stuff you can go onto those silly apps, those games, and you can spend $4,000 on an upgrade. They have it there. Like, it's in the shop, like, for people dumb enough and just foolish enough to spend it. Anyway, so we had this whole thing thought through, and it was on our roadmap. It was like, once that app takes off, we're going to do. And at one point it was like, then we go into this, we're going to launch Tapify and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, long story short, about, when was this? When was March, April? Apple had their developer conference, or whatever their keynote is, and they announced Apple Arcade. And we're like, holy smokes, here it is, right? So Apple launches Apple Arcade, and it just came out officially now. I think it's $5 a month or $5.99
something like
month.
that. Yeah.
And it has, I don't know how many games, at least 100, completely unlocked, like free to play. All upgrades I think are in there. Like, it's just free. And then immediately thereafter, Google comes out with GamePass. And I think it launched this week. Same thing, $4.99. In fact, if you get it now, which I'm actually going to do because it's like I'm such a
Nate's got stupid money.
I got stupid money. But they have a deal. I think if you pay for a year, when it like in the next couple of weeks, you can get it for like $2 a month for the year. So it's like $24.
Yeah.
And they're going to have the same thing. Anyway, let me just say this. So we came up with that idea 2 years ago. It was on a roadmap, and we had talked to people about it, and they're like, guys, this has a lot of potential. Like, right? Like, we had signals, and we punted.
We did.
We punted. And it's sort of that thought of like, man, had we had the foresight to say, you know what, this is where we should play. Let's just do something like this right now. Let's build an MVP. Let's do da-da-da. Had we sort of done that, I mean, shoot, man, we would not. So here's what's happening right now. So Google is launching Game Pass. Samsung is now starting their own subscription. And watch, every other carrier is going to, all of them are going to have their own app stores, right? Because on Android you can't. So had we done that, I'm just throwing it out there. Had we done that, we would have potentially a user base, app developers online. We would have a big fat dollar sign on our face saying, buy us, acquire us, and cut a year or two out of your development time and your startup time. And here you go. We could have been a great acquisition target for who knows who. Maybe Amazon will get back into it, right? Amazon was using their App Underground thing as a way to sell their tablets, their Fire tablets. So maybe they would go back to that. Who knows, right? Think about that. You throw it in. You say, okay, we're going to have this thing. We're going to give it free. It's on every Fire
even Apple.
tablet.
If you buy the new iPhone, I think it's included for a month or a year.
I think if you buy a new iPhone or a new Mac or anything like that, I think you get
the Game Pass.
Is it the arcade or is it
the arcade?
And I think it's the
TV thing
TV
also?
Plus or something like. They think they throw it in for like a year. I think it was like a year. It's crazy.
It's gonna be hard to compete.
It's gonna be hard to compete. So we wouldn't have been able to compete. I mean, what's crazy is they're charging like $5 a month for this thing. I mean, we thought, no way. I mean, when we were doing the math,
$2.99.
I know, but when we were doing our estimations for Tapify, like I wanted it to be around $5, right? So think about like that's sort of like you buy one app, it was like $1.99, $9.99.
Right.
$5 felt like okay, a month was about right. But I don't know how we would have been able to.
At that rate, no.
I don't think, honestly, I don't think Google's doing it to make money. I think they're just doing it to stay relevant and stay.
Possibly.
I mean, they literally launched it a week after Apple did. I mean, it's totally like, it's not even, I think.
It's almost like they were holding it.
Completely, dude.
Right?
Completely.
You'd like, let me just crap on Apple's little launch.
Yeah, watch this, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to launch it? And then they like wait
and
for
I
them
would
to
love
launch
to
it.
see the stats right now. Because, we've been working on Tap for 3 years now. And we just seen the rise of Android, right?
Yeah.
Go up and up and up. I mean, even with these new iPhones coming out, like, it still doesn't, I still don't think that's, where it's going. I still think it's Android.
Yeah. Did you see that? I sent you that article today.
I didn't, I saw the pictures of the phone. I didn't see.
Dude.
The phone's ridiculous.
It's called I'll have to look it up. Dude, It's stupid.
It's crazy.
It's a wraparound screen.
Yeah.
Goes all the way around it, except for like there's like a bar for like the camera and all this.
And the reason I say that is because you're getting an influx of influencers, a lot of tech ones. Hell, I think even maybe influencers in general you're starting to see them with the Android phones.
Really?
Yeah. Just because they're better, like they do more things. They. In fact, a lot of these guys have both.
Yeah, I could see both.
Both.
I mean,
but the fact that I think that they hang on to the iOS, the phone, is for the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And nothing else. And then, use the Android for most things, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
But you're seeing more of it. And more people, man, the Nexus and, There's
Pixel,
some the
dude.
Pixel, like
My next phone will probably be a Pixel.
there's some nice stuff coming out.
Dude, can I tell you real quick?
Yeah.
So Samsung. So this is what's so messed up. I think the phone industry, the smartphone thing is ripe for disruption, man. So as I was saying, like web apps and stuff like this, someone needs to just be like, okay, this is dumb, and we need to sort of basically make Chrome for phones, because the problem is the hardware, you know what I mean? It's too tied in, like the hardware and the software, in the sense that like your phone will become obsolete, right? So Samsung, let me put this way. So you have Android. Google makes Android, the operating system, right? Well, when Google or Android comes out with a new release, you would think, just like our computers work, that the operating system gets an update and everybody who's running a phone that's compatible gets the update. No. So Google introduced the new operating system. I think it's 10 or maybe 11. I forget which one it is. But they released it, and then it still isn't even available for my phone. Like, it came out like 6 months ago on the Pixel. But Samsung has to like get their fingers on it, and AT&T has to like fudge
There's too
with
many
it.
like barriers.
Yeah, so it won't even release it. And then come to find out, like one of the newest ones won't even be released for my phone. So I'm going to be stuck in sort of this, even though the phone can actually handle it, Samsung won't support it, and it's just this whole mess. So I think the lesson is like, even if you're not, like, Apple has its own ecosystem, but I think Google and Android and the Pixel, that's its own ecosystem too. And I think as I look, one thing that will probably keep me, at least for the time being, sort of in that Android world is sort of my addiction to Google. Like, this is sort of, I think, Apple's weak spot right now, is that they've really walked away from services. They've focused more on hardware and less on software. And so there's not to say that their operating systems aren't good. They are good. But there's no real services. Like, what outside of the iOS do you use of Apple's? Camera?
Well, messages is basically
Messages, right? But those are sort of like, but anything beyond that, I mean, didn't they come out with like some photo editing thing for a while back, and then like I haven't even heard anything about it.
Yeah, no. Now it's kind of built into the camera app, I think.
Is it?
Probably.
Anyway, but it used to be. So I'm just thinking back. Remember when Steve Jobs came out with the whole iLife thing?
Yeah.
That was huge, man, and it was so smart, because he's like, all right, Microsoft, and because at the time that was it. Microsoft and Windows have dominated the business world, right? He's like, I ain't gonna screw with competing with Word right now. He would later, but he's like, I'm gonna own your lifestyle. Like, Microsoft can own the 8 to 5. I'm gonna own the 5 to 8, right? And weekends. I'm gonna do all the stuff that's not work related. I'm gonna make it fun. We're gonna do movies. We're gonna play games. We're gonna make DVDs. We're gonna make music, right? All that stuff. Like, that was sort of their whole iLife suite was just genius, because and it worked. It was just and it just brought in all these people who are like, yeah, you know what? I've got a PC at the office. When I come home, I want to do fun stuff. Give me my iMac or whatever. Because there was something to do. It was like personal productivity on that level. And I'm not saying that, I wonder where that is now with Apple, but I think they sort of stepped away from that. They sort of said, you know what, these apps that are out there, we're just going to let them sort of dictate what you do. But the problem is that anyone who's building apps has to build it for Mac and, or iOS and Android. So the differentiator isn't there as much, I mean, I play on my wife's phone sometimes, and there's not anything on her phone that I don't have,
Stuck to this thing is messages and AirDrop. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't even care about FaceTime. Messages and AirDrop.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because it's the ease of use and productivity. Like I can, even though you technically can also, like I use messages on my Mac and on my phone and switch
Right.
at free will,
Yeah.
whichever is convenient.
Yeah.
And then AirDrop files,
Yeah.
which is convenient for, the stuff we're doing with social media and
Right.
getting a clip off of my iMac to my iPhone
And back and forth,
in
right?
a second.
Yeah.
And then copying a script, or a headline on the iMac, Control C, and then on my phone paste. Those little things
Yeah.
are what matter. And that's where I think there's going to be a struggle for those type of people that need that, that ecosystem to sort of play.
Yeah.
But
there's
got to be a way.
My workaround,
No.
I told you this, is Suzette and I use Slack.
Yeah.
I basically, my wife and I, we use Slack to text each other. Because it works like iMessage, right? Like I can use it on my phone, my Mac, her phone, her Mac. It's cross-platform.
Totally. Yeah.
And it has a sort of the level of functionality that iMessage has.
But there's just something about messages. Like the funniest thing is I saw it on LinkedIn. Someone was asking about the whole green.
Oh yeah, the
versus
green
blue
bubbles.
thing.
Yeah.
That if there's a group message with kids, this is something that someone's daughter said. That was in middle school or high school. Said if we start a group chat and someone's got the green, they'll start another group without that person. Yes.
Why?
Nobody wants to see the green.
They're just annoyed by the green
They're
color.
annoyed, and then it does make a difference. So, for example, I will use Suzette as an example since you brought her up.
Yeah.
We're on a group chat, the four of us. My wife, Cynthia, and your wife, and the four of us. And you F it up for all of us. We can't use reactions on here.
Oh, really? It dumbs it down?
Yeah. I mean, the green right here, that's all you, homie. No, actually, the green is me.
Oh, okay.
But it has to send it as a text.
As a SMS.
Because of you, because you're on here. And people in groups, they can't handle that. And then the other reason is, so you have these reactions, right? If I add a reaction, it's gonna say loved.
Yeah, that's what I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what everybody sees.
Yeah.
And that's annoying.
Yeah,
that's not what
annoying.
it's intended to do.
Yeah.
So that's the thing,
See, this is what's so jacked up, is Apple could easily work around that.
Of course.
That's not even that's intentionally being stubborn.
Of course it is.
Screw this.
Of course it is. We're going to call you, single you out.
Single you out, color code you.
Color code
There's no
you.
reason. I don't need to see the green. It could easily be blue or green or purple or orange. But no. Calling you out. And then
Calling you out.
And then being like, you know what? No, we're not going to let you send reactions.
No.
Oh, that's so dumb. Honestly, I did hear rumors that Google was working on a new messaging app because texting on an Android is just horrible.
Yeah, I bet.
Anyway, so fun stuff.
Yeah, good
what else is
stuff.
going on? I'm talking about.
Well, we
phones and
got,
stuff.
what else is going on? We've got,
What's going on this week?
hopefully we close some business. We sent some proposals out.
Yep.
One of them, not really a startup. It's sort of still in part of the core business, I guess, that we're still in.
Yeah.
But it's a global consumer food brand.
Yeah.
We've done some work for them in the past.
Yeah.
But that stuff is still, I think because it's consumer facing, it's still fun for me.
Oh yeah.
And we've got our team, such a talented group of guys just on deck waiting right now. And this startup stuff has been slower for them.
Yeah.
Not for us, but for them. So it'd be good to get them
Yeah.
working.
I'd love to just get something like that.
Yeah. since summer was a little slow
Yeah.
in a sense. And usually by now things pick up pretty heavily. But I think
Yeah.
because we've been focused over here, the startup thing, hasn't been as much. So I'm looking forward to landing something like that to just get to work.
Yeah. Yeah. We did lose a pitch
We
or a
did.
proposal.
We did.
So we could have
But
been
I'm
really
not.
busy.
I'm not upset about it.
No. It's life. It happens. But
I just don't like the way it was
regrets.
sort of. It was sort of like a formal RFP, but there was some details missing, and we're kind of like, I don't know,
Yeah. It was
like the reason for not getting it awarded was weird.
yes, I agree. And
If you get beat fair and square, bring it
please,
on. Like,
bring it.
Like I'll give you props
Yeah.
if your idea was better than ours.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But it was like a technicality. Like
Well, it was. Let me put it this way: if I went, because I went through the whole RFP after our conversation, and there was almost, well, I'll put it out there a little bit. There was no mention of producing creative concepts specifically for the pitch.
right.
It wasn't in there. It was probably discussed maybe over the phone a little bit, but even so, let me put it this way: when you're asking for a creative or a proposal, and you're like, "Hey, it'd be great to show some creative thinking in there." To me, that's like, obviously you're asking for some ideas, but you're not supposed to ask for the actual executions of what the project is. It's more or less like ideas around it, or how we like to do it is more strategic thinking, right? What's a good strategy on how to sort of break through some of this, solve some of the challenges that are facing this whole campaign. And the creative execution of some of those things, like we're talking visuals and headlines, like literally ad executions, that would actually be considered doing the work. You know what I mean? Like that's actually like saying, here's the assignment. Now this is different. So in the ad agency world, because I used to work on pitches all the time, the way you would actually spend a lot of time doing creative work for pitches, but here's the difference. Pitches were for the entire account. Okay? So if it was, I remember working on a pitch for Best Buy, right? And
So it wasn't like for one campaign. It was like
it was
to
not
win
a
the whole
project.
account.
It wasn't like, hey, we need ideas for our big holiday campaign. No. It was, do you want to be the agency of record for Best Buy? Throw some ideas out there. And in that situation, it's much more freeing, and you're not creating stuff that will probably ever be executed, right? It's just, here's how we think as an agency. If we had a blank slate and we could do anything we wanted, our recommendation would be this. Which is very different than, hey guys, we have a project right here. Will you solve it for us and then show us the end result, and we'll pick if you get to do it. And that's what that RFP was. That's the expectation around that RFP. And that's crossing a line. That's crossing a line. And I don't think it was with malice. I don't think the client was thinking that, hey, I'm expecting you to solve this actual project, or seeing the ethical dilemma. I don't think that they were thinking that way. But that sort of, to me, just showcases a little bit of, maybe a little bit of inexperience in that regard. Because that definitely was, if it was, hey guys, do you want to be the agency of record for this client? Then fine, yeah, we'll throw ideas up all day long. We'll throw headlines and visuals and stuff like that. But if it's for a specific project, I mean, how do you bill for that? Anyway, creates issues. So we didn't win that one.
I'm okay with that.
And I am too. I mean, I think we were really diplomatic in how we sort of.
Our ideas were cool.
Dude, they were really cool. In fact, we even got some other people involved. We got another partner involved, and we'll probably keep that idea around or something. Or
Yeah,
there's other
back pocket
groups,
it.
so we might find
Back pocket
ourselves
it.
in pitching that idea again someday. But anyway, long story short, agency life, man, keeps going.
Agency life, all day.
Yeah, it's the fighting the good fight, man.
Yeah. That's about a good place to end.
Yeah, we
Got
bored
some
everybody.
meetups. We'll
All
post
three of
those-
you left.
We got some meetup dates coming up. We'll post those up.
Yeah.
We've got the Go Founders.
Oh, we got something
And then
new.
we've got something new. What's that all about?
So we're going to start a new meetup group called Gravity. And essentially Gravity is taking what we've learned from our Go Founders meetup and extending it into the world of agencies. So rather than sort of looking for founders to talk to, we're actually reaching out to other agency creatives, executives, partners, owners, anyone in that sort of agency world. And what we kind of realized is that there's a whole, and this is probably going to be for smaller agencies, and it's probably not going to be for like the big, the big Omnicom peeps. But it's really probably going to be for those mid to smaller sized boutiques and agencies that are really looking for good partners to work with. And so what we realize is that, we get projects and not having, or depending on who we are in touch with as partners, we'll sort of tailor an idea like that. So, and it just talking about this pitch, like that was sort of the thing. We had met some people on a trip, and when this RFP came in, we said, man, we should call these guys up and see if they will pitch it with us. And they did. In fact, they were even on the call with us. So anyway, point being, we want to create a community where agency people can get together, and in the process, obviously chit-chat about, do some shop talk, but also work on finding those synergies and saying, hey, look, we're looking for this and you're looking for this. Let's, are you down for going in on, pitching this client or finding some opportunities? So yeah, Gravity. I have an event already on the board, I think.
The next week?
Sometime in October.
Oh,
We're going to have it at Baja Sharkies in Manhattan Beach.
hey.
Just chill, dude. I'm actually a little worried. I don't know. It's such a...
little rowdy.
You've been to Baja Sharkies,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It can get rowdy.
It's a rowdy bar. It's like a college bar, but this is the Manhattan Beach one, so hopefully it's a little
Oh,
nicer.
I've only been to the Hermosa.
The Hermosa one,
Yeah.
but it's on like a Thursday around 5:30.
It's happy hour.
It's happy hour. It's funny because I'm curious to see are the agency people going to be like, are they? You know what I mean? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know.
what kind of do they prefer more of a cocktail lounge? Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what are they? I'm just imagining some people coming in with some, all dressed up and sitting down at a tiki bar. Like, how's that gonna fly? Whatever.
We'll see.
We'll see.
It should be fun.
I think it'll be fun. But it's right down by. What's nice about the location? It's real close to. It's right on the border of Manhattan Beach and El Segundo, and then of course right above El Segundo is Playa Vista, and so that's really going to be close, and Venice and all that stuff. So hopefully we'll get some tech people from up there.
Don't hate the playa.
Don't hate the playa. Hate the game.
Peace out.
Chat.
Oof.
Got to get it all out though.